Ivy Show. I am Aaron.
I'm Brandon.
And we are your co-hosts.
Are we getting better?
I am your younger co-host and the better looking one, and Brandon is the older co-host, the bald one.
The older and more wiser. I am
I don't know about
Gandalf the Grey.
I am college educated.
I'm college educated. I have my diploma right there.
What?
Yeah, right here, bro.
What we're talking about? When did you finish your diploma?
Not that long ago. Liberty University. I got my
Is that
degree.
your associates or your bachelor's?
It's my associates, but it's
I have a bachelor's.
yeah, but mine's in smart stuff.
Yeah, mine's in criminal justice. I can't do anything with that.
Mine's in information systems. I can't do anything with this either.
Man,
I
that was good.
learned how to research building IT projects, and I've done nothing with it.
There you go. I'm proud of you.
I'm proud of you too.
Thanks, man.
One
Look at
day,
that.
one of us will grow up and amount to something.
Yeah, maybe this podcast.
Maybe this is it.
Maybe. So, in light of recent events in Utah where the suspected Charlie Kirk assassin, Tyler Robinson, faces the death penalty, capital punishment has become quite the topic of debate among political, religious, and cultural groups across the country. President Trump issued a presidential memorandum seeking to reinstate the death penalty in Washington, D.C., where he stated in the Oval Office, I was going to do this in his voice, but nobody can do Trump's voice like Trump's voice. But he said,
it's huge. This is a huge ordeal.
It's a huge ordeal. The death penalty, I can't do it. All right, the death penalty in Washington, you kill somebody or you kill a police officer, law enforcement officer, death penalty. And hopefully they won't do that. Attorney General Pam Bondi announced that the Justice Department will be seeking capital punishment across the country. And then we have Erica Kirk forgiving her husband's killer in what can only be the light of Jesus Christ shining through her as she addressed the nation and the world at her husband's memorial. So that brings up the question, does her personal forgiveness of Tyler Robinson mean that the state should drop the death penalty? Does the state still have the moral and ethical right to consider the death penalty, giving Erica's forgiveness? Should justice be black and white, or should there be a gray area? And these are all questions that me and Brandon are going to seek to answer tonight. I posed the question to my Facebook friends, do you support the death penalty, and why or why not? I received many responses ranging from support to middle ground to I have no idea to people being against the death penalty. Many Christians in my friends list noting that while the flesh lusts for vengeance, the spirit yearns for mercy. One person stated that it was tough for them for the same reason. A pastor friend of mine said our opinion on it is irrelevant. Scripture says that the government doesn't bear the sword in vain, Romans 13:4, literally for not reason. That reason is not vengeance. It is no less than the preservation of the freedoms and rights we share. Sharing his thoughts with capital punishment should be swift, humane, and certain, and every grace should be afforded the innocent family of the convicted. According to a Gallup poll in 2024, 53% of Americans supported the death penalty, and 43% of Americans were not in favor of it. Consistent across that last 80 or so years, we have seen a much larger support for the death penalty than those against the death penalty.
I want to add something to the Erica Kirk before diving into some things that I wanted to say.
Yeah.
You know, she actually was quoted as saying, I've had so many people ask, do you feel anger towards this man? Like, do you want to seek the death penalty? She told the New York Times. And she said, I'll be honest. She continued, I told our lawyer I want the government to decide this. I do not want that man's blood on my ledger. You got any thoughts on that before we move into this?
I think that her views much align with mine.
I think, yeah.
This is a double-edged sword. And it's going to sound like I'm taking an easy way out. While we were researching this, I feel like I currently stand, and this may change by the end of the episode based on the research you've done and the reviewing the research that I've done, but I currently stand with, I don't think that Christians should support the death penalty as individuals or as a whole, but I understand the reason that the government uses it.
Yeah, I think there's some scripture to actually support her quote too. We'll get into that later, but
what happened in Michigan?
Yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. So as we were preparing for this episode, Of course, we all know what happened up in Michigan. If you haven't heard about it, I spent the last few days reading about this. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Michigan. We saw a man drive his truck into a church. He opened fire. They're not exactly sure yet how he got the fire to spread so quick once he actually started a fire. He started shooting, but then also there was a fire started too. Mm-hmm. They believe it may have been gasoline, but I don't think they're 100% yet on what I've been reading. But he
was, not to interrupt you, it was catastrophic. I mean, the aerial images, the way that fire spread, it almost, I'm not a fire investigator, I don't know, but it almost looked like it spread from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
Because some of the exterior didn't really seem harmed, but the whole square interior was completely gone.
Yeah, the photo I looked at was, the inside was just totally gone. I think they said they found some explosives too once they actually got inside.
He had some IEDs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there was like 4 of them.
Yeah, planted around the church, which makes me think that he had pre-set some stuff up. Maybe I'm just speculating, but probably, and maybe he had some accelerants already in place for the fire.
Yeah, because response time was really quick. I forgot to put it in my notes, but I remember response time was like incredibly quick.
Yeah.
So I don't think that he would have had time to do. But then again, I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't researched the time frame. I saw where law enforcement responded quickly, engaged him in a gunfight, took him down, but I don't understand how the fire spread as quickly as it did if there were not already accelerants in place. Yeah. That are my understanding of the time of the wreck to the time of law enforcement engaging him is skewed.
Yeah. I do know from my experience with fires.
You have an experience with fires?
I do. Not to make light of this situation. We're definitely not trying to do that. I had a house fire several years ago. It spreads really quick. I had a grease fire, and by the time, my house is not very big, I was at the back of the house. I yelled to my wife, "Fire." She thought I was joking because I'm a goober and joke a lot about things. She saw the smoke. We gathered up all the dogs, put them on the front porch. I realized I had to go back inside and get their leashes. When I went back inside to get their leashes, my kitchen was entirely engulfed in flames.
Yeah.
And I mean, we hadn't been outside, 10, 15 seconds, just enough. So I had to go to the back of the kitchen to get the leashes, and it was just, whole thing was fire. So, yeah. I mean, fires spreads quick. I can't say that much, but I mean, for this type of situation, I think there was definitely more to it, but currently, looking at the situation up there in Michigan, the FBI currently does believe that this was a targeted act of violence. We know that there was at least 4 people killed. There were 8 wounded. The 8 that are wounded are expected to recover. Thomas Sanford is the one who, he's the one that did all this. News continues to break on the story. We noted at one point, Thomas actually, and it was something I read on Fox, Thomas actually was dating a woman who was a Mormon and actually had considered joining the church at one point. And then the way they said it is just that he one day just left abruptly.
He eventually called them. I read a source from CNN that said that he eventually started calling them the Antichrist.
Yeah.
The church itself was the Antichrist.
Yeah, he eventually started calling them the Antichrist. According to Chris Johns, who is running for a seat up there in Burton City Council, he said that he had actually spoken with Sanford while out canvassing, and Thomas went on what he described as just a tirade about the LDS Church, calling them the Antichrist, going over their history. I don't know if we'll ever know exactly what happened. I do know from what I read, he was a very decorated war veteran. Mm-hmm. Maybe something snapped. I don't think.
I read on CNN that he had gotten hooked on amphetamines. So I wonder if between maybe, and this is speculation, and we're going to tie this into the topic of the death penalty. I wonder if between amphetamines and his ex-girlfriend, PTSD, I wonder if like that trifecta just made him one day get, I'm going to take out this church.
I wonder what led to him leaving, like, because if they said at one point he'd actually considered joining the church and then left. I wonder what led to that too, because that could play. I mean, we may never really know the full story. I mean, things are still continuing to break, but ultimately we wanted to touch on it. because our heart and prayers do go out to all the families involved.
Absolutely.
Our heart and prayers go out to the family of Thomas because his parents lost a child too.
Yep.
And
even though me and Brandon are not Mormons, we are Christians. We believe in Jesus Christ. They are a branch of the same tree, and there is a war on Christians in this country and across the world right now, and the longer it takes us to become aware of that, the more danger that we as Christians are in.
Yep. And something I want to throw out there, this isn't a right versus left thing.
No.
Every news story tries to turn this into something political. We have a heart problem.
Yes.
And we've got to get back to Jesus.
Yep. And the real Jesus, not the Americanized, watered down version of Jesus, but the real life changer, Jesus Christ.
Yes, sir.
So that brings us to the two questions that we really want to try to answer today. Should we use the death penalty, and what does God's word say about capital punishment? If the suspect in the LDS Church massacre had not been gunned down by police and was captured, would he deserve to be put to death? Deserve. I'm asking, deserve to be put to death. And the answer, like the obvious answer, is yes. He would deserve, keyword, to be put to death. Should we as Christians call for him to be put to death? And I think that is a hard no. What do you think?
So I know when we first started talking about this, I said that I kind of lean towards it, but I think that might be flesh talking more than anything. Because, and as we get more down through this, we'll go over some of the different verses we have. I think Paul's pretty clear that we as Christians aren't supposed to seek revenge for ourselves.
Well, let's throw it out like this. Paul facilitated the stoning of Christians. Stephen was the first martyr. Paul facilitated that stoning.
Yeah.
Was Paul worthy of death? Worthy, deserved, yes.
Yeah.
But did Jesus put him to death?
No. Jesus used him for greatness. I mean, look at how much ministry came and how much spread of the gospel came from Paul.
2/3 of the New Testament was Paul. You could argue that the only reason, outside of Jesus, obviously, but that the reason the church accelerated as fast as it did was because of Paul. Was because Paul had an encounter with Jesus, and he said, "Yes, Lord, send me." So we're talking about something incredibly heavy today, the death penalty. And I thought it would be not fun, that's the wrong word. I thought it would be good to go into how the death penalty originated. Like, what are some of the earliest historical accounts of the death penalty? I think Brandon's going to dive into some of the biblical accounts of the death penalty. So how did the death penalty originate? Well, according to Death Penalty Information Center, the death penalty, or capital punishment, from a quote-unquote government setting can be traced back to around 1760 BC. The code of, and I'm about to butcher this, Hammurabi, which was established by Babylon, which we read about in the Bible, embodied the principle of an eye for an eye. Most civilizations, or ancient civilizations, appear to have had some form of capital punishment based on what we know about their penal codes. And throughout history, the death penalty involved, along with humanity's understanding of how to form law and penal codes, we see a stricter use of capital punishment, meaning that we did not use it as much as society has evolved. And today, it's something that's very seldomly used compared to 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. And it is not broadcasted. Now, they couldn't broadcast it back in the day. But, Jesus was hung on a cross. He was sentenced to death. He was hung on a cross in front of everybody to see that came up on Golgotha.
Yeah.
And
it's very public.
Yep, and we don't do that now.
Do you think more people would be against the death penalty if it was public?
Yes.
Yeah.
I, in my job, I have had the unfortunate event of watching good men and bad men die, and I will tell you this: that as a Christian, watching good men die and watching bad men die, it's the same. It is terrible to watch somebody lose their life, whether they were an innocent person in a car wreck or a true evil criminal. It is still a loss of life, and that's what makes us who we are, is our lives. So, before I go into is it necessary, do you have anything you want to add?
So, I mean, just as you mentioned before, this is definitely going to be a heavy topic today. I mean, when you first asked me about where I stand on the death penalty, I told you when I was younger, I fully supported it. Mm-hmm. And I feel like as I've gotten older, I've definitely become more softy as I've gotten older. But my thoughts,
that comes with wisdom.
I think so too, yeah. I find myself getting teary-eyed in more movies than I used to. But
me too.
Dude, it could be something so simple too. I'll just be like,
finding Dory when Dory finds her parents. Oh my
for
gosh.
real, bro. Like, I was like, I wish I knew where mine were. I'm just kidding.
He's
in the other room.
He's in that room right there.
Yeah, he's in the other room.
Our dad lives with me and my wife.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, no, and of course, me and my wife have a huge heart for pets. So anytime a dog dies in a movie, if it's early in the movie, me and my wife will turn it off. We won't even finish watching the movie.
Unless it's John Wick.
Well, yeah, of course, because
then the flesh is seeking revenge.
Exactly. We know that dog's getting taken care of.
I think the first, my first actual encounter with my thoughts on the death penalty was the Boston bombing. I remember I was going to Liberty at the time, and the Boston bombing happened. I was at work at Sam's Club, and I sat down on my 15-minute break, and it just, like, they had just caught the younger brother. Because I think, if my memory serves right, the older brother was killed, right?
I think so, but don't quote me on that. I can't remember.
I might be wrong, but I remember me and the younger brother were the same age or close to the same age. And I remember thinking, this is a guy who has been groomed for the moment of that, like that moment of his life. And he's not, I mean, he's an adult. He made that decision. He killed all those people. But I remember thinking, man, he really just needs the grace of Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first, because before that, I'd always been super pro death penalty. We need to kill people who kill people. But that moment right there was like, I mean, when I saw, I mean, it was, I mean, back then I had shaggy curly hair and he had shaggy curly hair. And it was like looking at a Middle Eastern version of me that just went down a different path.
Yeah.
I saw somebody who could be redeemed. And I think that's the way Jesus looks at all of us.
Yep.
So is it necessary? Is the death penalty necessary? And looking at it from a legal sense, it depends on how you look at it. There are two forms of justice that the death penalty is viewed under. One is deterrence, like the death penalty deterring from violent crimes happening, and the other one is retribution, an eye for an eye. Like, you did something heinous, so something heinous is going to happen to you. And we see almost consistently a violent crime rate that is 30% higher in death penalty states than we do in states without the death penalty. So if we're using it as a deterrent, it's not working, because here's the thing: evil doesn't care if you kill it.
No.
Satan does not care if you kill his minions. And that's the difference between our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, who came and died for us. And if you don't serve Jesus, you serve Satan. And Satan, who does not care if you live or die. He wants to convince you that you are just a speck of dust, a moment in time, that your life doesn't matter, because then you're not using it to pursue the gospel. I mean, that's it. That right there is it. Satan does such a good job at convincing people that their lives don't matter, so they go and they do heinous crimes. And that's the complete opposite of what Jesus does, which is kneels down to the adulterous woman and like lifts her up and says, "Hey, who here judges you?" And she says, "No one, Lord." And he says, "Then I don't either. Go and sin no more." I mean, that wasn't in my notes, but I really feel like that's what God wanted me to say right there.
Yeah, no, I think that's good.
And go ahead. You got something you want to say?
Oh no, I was just gonna go into just gonna kind of finish up some thoughts I had. So of course, as we've both mentioned, as we've gotten a little older, gotten some mixed about it. For me, when I first started thinking about it, I asked my wife, I was like, "So what do you think about the death penalty?" And she's like, "Eye for an eye." And I'm like, "Well, what about Matthew chapter 5? Because Jesus says, 'For you have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also.'"
Mm-hmm.
So I thought there's more to this, maybe, because I mean, clearly Jesus is telling us right there that, yeah, you've heard it said that, but I'm telling you not to resist an evil person.
Yep. And you who is without sin, cast the first stone.
Yeah. Jesus is telling us grace.
Yeah. Okay. You can kill her, but only if you're without sin.
Yeah. And
so go ahead.
I was just going to say, when you think about how, like, for Christians, the fact that he says, do not resist an evil person, I know where I'm going if I die.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, because I am still human and I am flesh, for me, myself, I think I could do that. But if somebody was trying to hurt my family, I would have a totally different view on it, because I would do anything to protect my wife, and
yeah,
it'd be a tough one.
With in that, men are called to, and we're going to talk about this next week in the role of genders, but men are called to be protectors of their family. Am I being a Christian father if I let somebody kick in my door and kill my whole family? And
this is going to be a great tie into that next episode.
And I think the answer to that is no, because yes, an eye for an eye, and but I'm not going to let somebody hurt innocent children.
No.
I'm not going to let somebody hurt my wife. I'm not going to let somebody come in my home and hurt me.
Yeah. I can't protect her if I'm not here.
No. And this
is such a heavy, tough subject.
This is a tough topic, man. So
go
ahead.
Something I thought was interesting. You talked about, is it necessary? Does it actually deter crime? Something I thought was interesting, and when we were talking about last week, I said, why would we want to keep paying for people to sit in prison their whole lives? But when I was reading on deathpenaltyinfo.org, the Death Penalty Information Center, it actually cost us way more for death row inmates.
Well, because they have all their appeals and they have all their hearings.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think there was a statistic that said it's like 70% more. And don't quote me on that. I have to look it back up, but it was significantly higher.
Well, you got to think about it. Like, a life sentence person gets one lawyer. Like, if it's a state-appointed attorney, they get one lawyer. Tyler Robinson has 3 state-appointed lawyers. And the state had to not use, from my understanding, they didn't use the public defender's office. They had to go out and hire 3 death penalty attorneys for this guy, because that's his constitutional right to have. And yeah, I mean, it's significantly more. And then also, in tying right into that, in states with the death penalty, we see a poverty rate that is significantly higher than states without the death penalty.
Mm-hmm.
So, knowing that the death penalty costs more, and that the death penalty is already, like, poverty states and death penalty states align typically. I mean, there's some outliers, but they typically align, and it doesn't deter crime. We see 30% higher crime rates in states with the death penalty. Is it worth it at that point?
Yeah.
Other than for retribution. And we'll get into that in a minute, but I don't know. And then, states with the death penalty and the poverty rate, if you pull up another overlay of a map and you put violent crime statistics, it's right that, like, violent crime statistics, poverty rate, and death penalty states all align together. And then, I mean, my brain made the argument of, well, maybe, the low poverty leads to the high violent crime rate, and then the high violent crime rate leads to these states wanting to have retribution against violent criminals.
Mm-hmm.
And the flesh can see that argument and make sense of that argument. But, I mean, it still raises the question, is it necessary? Because it's clearly not a deterrent. And if the point of the death penalty is not deterrent and it's retribution, or an eye for an eye, is a Judeo-Christian based country, does it even have a place in our penal code? And what is it like? So, other than retribution, the death penalty does, and I mean, I'm convincing myself to go 100% one way as I speak this out loud. The death penalty doesn't deter crime
Nope.
because evil doesn't care. It does not. Retribution is not ours; it's God's. And I don't know, but then are some acts of evil so atrocious that the person that committed them, do they deserve to be killed?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, take these school shooters for instance. They go into schools and they murder innocent kids who are just trying to go to school.
Yeah.
Does that person deserve the light of day? Does that person deserve to even breathe?
Do you?
And go ahead.
This is where the question, and I just pulled the video back up because I was thinking about it, because as we're talking about this just keeps coming to my mind. And I've talked to you about, and we've talked about this before on the show, restorative justice. Do we think that has a place instead of the death penalty? Because this is a tremendous story, but it's a story of an Australian father who meets his children's killer. It was a man who got drunk, drove into I think there was 4 kids in total that were actually run over. 3 of them were his children, and 1 was a cousin. They were all killed. And the father and the man who did this now meet up regularly to discuss faith.
Mm.
Because they have a program over there that I think it's like called restorative justice or something actually like that. But this was one of the first times they'd ever actually allowed it to be videoed. It's on YouTube. It's a really cool documentary. It's very much worth a watch. But they actually asked the father in there, because I think he has 10 more years on his sentence. They're like, would you be okay if he was released today? And he said yes. I wish I would have looked into more of like the outcome of these restorative justice programs before doing this. But would that be a better solution? Because this man found Christ during his time.
Yeah. But what about the ones who don't?
Yeah. There are those who don't.
Because, I mean, there's some people that are just, their hearts are hard and they're so evil that they have no desire to meet Jesus. They're just evil. I mean, you got serial killers, you've got school shooters, you've got church shooters, you've got the guys. I mean, to be fair, you got the guys who went into the gay bar or the gay nightclub and like killed, like, well, it was like absurd, like a crazy amount of people.
Yeah.
Like they do. And so what does the Bible say about it?
Let's get into. Yeah, there's 49 people killed in that attack in Florida.
Yeah, 49 people killed.
That's insane. And 53 left wounded.
Yep.
Holy cow.
So let's see what the Bible says.
Let's dive into this.
In the Old Testament, the death penalty in the Bible is very well explained.
Mm-hmm.
The following crimes according to the law of Moses, and there's some more, but these are the big ones. In Exodus 21:22, Leviticus 20, and Deuteronomy 13 and 22. Murder, kidnapping, bestiality, adultery, prostitution and rape, child sacrifice, idolatry, breaking the Sabbath, and blasphemy. So we see our typical, like, close to the 7 deadly sins that we have. And then also the Jewish, like, big no-nos, like idolatry, breaking the Sabbath, blasphemy. And, you know, and then we see, I wanted to tie this into this. We see that, you know, in the New Testament and the Gospels, breaking the Sabbath and blasphemy are what the Jews used to get Jesus put to death. That was their, rationale for putting Jesus to death. And they said that he was blaspheming by claiming to be the Son of God, and that he broke the Sabbath by performing miracles on the Sabbath. But I mean, we know that Jesus, he can't break the law if he is the law. He is the Word, which is the law that became flesh.
Mm-hmm.
John 1 tells us that. And then in the New Testament, the only time that we see the death penalty addressed by Jesus, with the exception of the 2 thieves on the cross, but the death penalty directly addressed by Jesus was when the Pharisees and the adulterous woman, like, they caught the adulterous woman. She is in the act of adultery. And if she's caught in the act of adultery, that means they probably brought her to Jesus butt naked. And we're like, all right, hey, Jesus, you're so smart. Moses' law says that we should kill her by stoning her to death.
You
what do you
imagine?
say? Oh my gosh, dude.
Hey, can you imagine?
And Jesus says, at first, Jesus kneels down, starts writing in the sand. I would love to know what he wrote.
There's so many like speculations. Like sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You're good.
I saw a video the other day where somebody was saying that, actually a friend of mine sent it to me. One of the speculations is apparently it was known back then that like some of the leaders, that like the Pharisee leaders and stuff, were known to mess around on like their wives and stuff. And suppose that the one of those speculations is that he was like writing the names of the different women. That would
when
be
we get to heaven, I gotta ask Jesus. I gotta be like,
yeah.
Savior, Redeemer, what did you write in the sand?
Yeah, like what were you writing the name? Because man, talk about a call out.
Yep, man,
that'd be wild.
But and he kneels down, he writes in the sand, and he stands up and he says, and he's basically like, okay, yep, Moses' law does say that, but you who are without sin cast the first stone. And we see one by one, the oldest to the youngest, drop their stones and walk away. And then he turns to this woman who was just essentially sentenced to death by the Pharisees. So she had the death penalty judged on her. And he looks at her and says, who here is condemning you? And she says, no one, my Lord. And he says, neither do I. Go and sin no more.
Isn't it?
That last part, not to cut you off, that last
you're good.
part is the most important part. Well, there's two important parts. One, Jesus forgave somebody who was sentenced to death. And then two, he said, now go and sin no more. He did not just say, you're forgiven, go keep living your life.
Yeah.
He said, you're forgiven, now go and sin no more. Go ahead.
I was going to say, isn't it interesting that it says from the oldest to the youngest? Because clearly the oldest are going to, just the oldest are going to have more sense. Of course, they're going to walk away first.
Mm-hmm. I would walk away before you did.
I always laugh about that, though, because there's a episode of The Simpsons. I don't remember what's going on in it, but
gosh,
Homer's. I know. I'm sorry, but Homer's like, but Flanders, he without sin, and all of a sudden he gets hit with 2 rocks, and it's his kids going, "We got him, Dad."
Oh my gosh,
that's always just makes me laugh. That show's so dumb.
Oh yeah, that is. So should we use the death penalty? Let's look at it from a government point of view, like just strictly the government.
Mm-hmm.
Let's try to take my very first note under my government section is a Bible verse, but
my very first no is biblical, even though I'm in my government section.
But listen. So Paul tells us in Romans 13, 1 through 4, I'm not going to quote the whole thing, but Paul tells us in Romans 13, 1 through 4, essentially that we should obey the government, that we should be submissive to the governing authorities and the laws that are established. And Paul also warns evildoers that the governing rulers, assuming that they are righteous, will carry out the wrath of God upon evildoers, that they will avenge righteous people against evildoers. And I mean, the wrath of God to sin is death. Paul writes that the government will effect the wrath of God on evildoers. That is my caveat.
Same. I have the same one.
That is my caveat to the death penalty. That I think that we as Christians should be vehemently against putting people to death, because our one mission on this earth is to lead people to Jesus Christ for the sake of the redemption of their souls and the furtherance of his kingdom. And if we kill somebody, we cannot lead them to Jesus Christ.
Yeah, we end that opportunity.
You end that opportunity, no matter what their crime is, no matter how heinous they are, you end that opportunity, because the Bible tells us, and I know I said I was talking about government, I'll get back on it, but the Bible tells us that the punishment, the wages of sin is death, and we are all sinful. Nobody has fallen short of the glory of God, but Jesus Christ looked down from his throne in heaven and said, I love them so much, I'm going to go down there, I'm going to bear their sin, I'm going to live their life as in be flesh, be 100% man and 100% God. And I'm going to go down there and I'm going to give them my word and I'm going to fulfill the law and I'm going to die on a cross and God's going to raise me 3 days later and I'm going to take the weight of their sin and I'm going to kill it in the grave. And if he did that for me, and if he did that for Brandon, then there's nobody on this earth that he cannot do that for and did not do that for, because 2,000 years ago, he did it for you. He did it for, as hard as it is to say, he did it for Hitler. He did it for Tyler Robinson. He did it for the guy who shot up the church. He did it for the guy who shot up the gay nightclub. He did it for every soul that lives on this earth. And he says, come to me as you are. Bring me your burdens and I will give you rest.
Yeah. I mean, as hard as it is to believe, God has a purpose for all of us, including Hitler. I like to throw him in there because, I mean, we all are created in the image of God and we all have a purpose.
That right there, man, that right there. We are all created in God's image.
Yeah.
I mean, if I am created in the image of God, and my enemy is created in the image of God, and I kill him, I am killing an image of God. Whether he's evil or not.
It is the ultimate spit in God's face.
And God, or Paul
Maybe
writes,
not the ultimate, but pretty, you know.
Yeah, but Paul writes that to die is gain. To live is Christ, but to die is gain. So if I die as a Christian, I'm gaining heaven.
Yes, sir.
Like, I'm gaining glory. I am gaining fellow person. Like, I have a personal fellowship with Jesus now, but I'm gaining face to face with Jesus every day. I love my wife. I love my son. I love my daughter. But if I die right now, I will be with Jesus for eternity.
Yeah.
And
the ultimate homecoming.
I want my death. I mean, this is getting dark, kind of, but I would want my death to be as powerful as Charlie Kirk's death. And that's not for me. That's because if I die, I want people to say, that guy did it right and he loved Jesus. And now I want to know who this Jesus guy was that made Aaron the way he was.
Like Charlie Kirk said,
different.
The one thing I want to be remembered for is my faith. My
courage for my faith. And that's how I want to be remembered. If I go to work and I get shot and killed, I don't want people to go, he was a great dad. I want people to say he was a good Christian.
Mm-hmm.
I want people to say, I want the relationship with God that he had. And I know that sounds egotistical. I don't mean it that way. I want to live my life so powerfully for the Lord Jesus that my death leads more people to him than my life ever could.
Yeah.
And if we kill somebody, they don't have the chance to repent. And so we as Christians, I don't think we as Christians can be for the death penalty.
There we go. Summed it up. Done.
I mean,
I'm joking, but there's more to this. But no, I think you're 100% right. I think you've hit the nail on the head there.
I mean, I didn't mean to get preachy there, but man, I don't. We prayed before this episode that God would give us the words to say, and I think that's the words to say.
Yeah, I think he just gave it to you right there. We could continue with our notes just for the sake of continuing, but I think we just hit it all right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to continue, but
we'll finish our notes out.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we've both got some good stuff that we want to talk about, but I mean, that's.
I think you're right. I mean, plus, I mean, like you were saying, look at Jesus. He showed grace throughout the entire time.
When he was on the cross with the two thieves who had been punished to death.
Yeah. When Peter cut the guy's ear off, he put it back on. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Peter tried to kill that guy.
Yeah.
Let's not mince words. Peter's not so like this Fisher guy is not so accurate with a sword that he just cut this guy's ear off.
I mean,
like
should have gone for the head, but he went for the ear.
Peter was cleaving for that dude's head and just happened to get his ear. And Jesus put the ear back on.
Yeah, he just put it back on.
Like
he showed grace again.
It was a mortal that could have been a mortal wound.
Mm-hmm.
And we see time and time again that Jesus forgives the unforgivable, whether that's in the Bible or in us. And I mean, the New Testament is just a constant theme of forgiveness, grace, mercy, and I don't think the death penalty has any place in grace, and it doesn't have any place in mercy, and it doesn't have any place in forgiveness. And I understand from a completely secular flesh point of view why the death penalty is used and the purpose of it. But as a Christian, I can't condone it.
No, yeah, 100%. I agree. Yeah. So there it is.
I mean, yeah. I mean, my last note. I say I'm torn, but I'm not torn anymore.
No, I think you've hit it all, and I'm going to touch on some of the same stuff you touched on going through mine. I've got a few different areas that I go through, but ultimately, I think you've boiled it down perfectly. So I guess we'll dive into the stuff that I got here.
Yeah, I'm sorry, dude. I just took that over. I'm sorry.
Bro, no. I mean, I'm never going to get in the way of the Lord talking. Let it go. I mean, like you said, before we started this, we prayed for him to use us and to speak, and I think he just spoke.
Yeah. Kind of sweating now.
I can see it, yeah. I mean, I'm fat, so I'm always sweating, or as I saw today in a post, apparently Gordon Ramsay had said that fat just means flavor. So instead of fat, I am flavorful. Put that out there. My wife told me that earlier and I about fell out of my chair.
Gross.
I know, it's so gross, but when she told me, I lost it. I have entered my flavor stage.
Man.
Anyway, so I have an interesting one, and I want to get your opinion on this.
I'm here.
Oh, no. Anywho, so as you know, you had gone back to the history of the death penalty and talked about we'll get back on track here and talked about just trying to read back through some of your notes. This is 1760. So I went through and I was watching a video because I definitely learn better through videos. So I was watching a lot of videos on this. Pastor Mike Winger, and I think it's how you say his Winger. I haven't seen a lot of his stuff, so I want to look more into his things. But he
not endorsing, points in a video,
but watching different sides and different takes on this. Most things I saw, or a lot of things I saw, were pro, and he is very pro. But he references Genesis chapter 9, verses 5 and 6. And for your lifeblood, I will surely demand an accounting. I will demand an accounting from every animal, and from each human being, too. I will demand an accounting for the life of another human being. Whoever sheds human blood, by humans shall their blood be shed. For an image of God has God made mankind. So this may be our very first, this is our very first reference to capital punishment in the history of time.
Yeah.
Because this was told to Noah after the flood. So this is before the law of Moses.
Yeah.
And this is one of the verses that both sides, and I think most of my notes are more of kind of looking at both sides and what people say on each side. But you got one side saying, since this is before the law of Moses, this still counts for today. And then you have the other side going, no, this doesn't count for today. And I do think it's interesting that we do see such an early reference, because it is such an early command, and that the early command is a form of capital punishment. But, Paul, of course, teaches that we're no longer under the law. Do you think that what is told in Genesis falls into that?
So the way that the law was taught to me, like the Torah, which is the first 5 books of the Old Testament, the law, the way that it was explained to me in theology school and in my internship at the church that I interned at, God gave us one rule at first. That was don't eat the fruit.
Yeah.
We failed that. We ate the fruit. And then between the time of...
I can hear the pitter patters.
Yeah, I was making sure he didn't step on the power cable. Um, between the time of don't eat the fruit and the Ten Commandments, I mean, he kind of gave us a couple of laws. Like, I think sacrifice was established before the Ten Commandments, and obviously the death penalty was established before the Ten Commandments. Cain killed Abel before the Ten Commandments. But Cain killed Abel, and God didn't kill Cain.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and
You know,
I think, and then Moses' law was hundreds of laws.
yeah.
And it reflects the penal code of today,
Mhm.
just hundreds and thousands of laws. And I think that Jesus came and fulfilled the law.
Yeah.
And then Paul wrote that we're not under the law anymore. And the Old Testament is a multitude of old covenants. I mean, it's the old covenant, like just in general, but it's different styles of covenants that God had with his people, and talking about legal covenants.
Mhm.
And then the New Testament, Jesus gave us one command: love God, love people. He says, if you do those things, you'll keep my commandments. So if you love God and you love people, you'll keep my commandments. And so I don't think that applies today in the sense of the punishment of that applies today. And I need to preface, the law is still the law.
Mhm.
If you were not covered under the blood of Jesus Christ, you will be judged by the law of the Old Testament. I mean, that's because while that law was for the Jews, that is God's law. That is how he will judge the world. So I don't think that supersedes Jesus.
Yeah, see, I lean more with you on that one, but I did think it was interesting to look at. So, like you, I also looked at Romans, and I looked at 12:19. Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath, for it is written, "It is mine to avenge; I will repay," says the Lord. And then in 13:4, for the one in authority is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for rulers do not bear the sword for no reason. They are God's servants, agents of wrath to bring punishment on the wrongdoers. So in 12:19, that's a directive towards Christians. We're not to seek revenge.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, in 13:4, and a lot of people like to use these two verses to try to say that the government does have this right because they're instituted by God.
Mm-hmm.
And something that just kind of crossed my mind when thinking about this, I still 100% agree with everything you were saying. We as Christians should not support the death penalty, because I'm thinking about one time I was sitting in a church and a pastor stated one time that we as Christians should literally throw ourselves in front of people to try to stop them from going to hell.
Yep. Stand in front of the gates of hell.
So I don't think, the more I think about this, like, I do not think that we can, as Christians, can stand. And also just think about 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 12 through 13, when Paul tells them, what business is it of mine to judge those outside the church? Are you to judge those inside, and God will judge those outside? Expel the wicked person from among you.
So I was thinking about that when I was making my notes, and the only I mentioned the caveat earlier, and so this is a theological question for you. If you are not covered under the blood of the Lamb, the grace is available to you, and showing that grace and mercy leads people to grace and mercy. If you are judged by 12 people who say, yes, you were guilty, and the established legal punishment for the crime that you committed is to be put to death, is it sin to kill that person?
That's an interesting question.
If they are, is it at that point? I mean, I've already established where I stand on it, but is it from, like, just playing the other side? Is it from that point?
So,
is it even an eye for an eye at that point? If evidence is waged against you, it is found to be true, and 12 jurors convene and they say 100% you are guilty, and the punishment is death, is that a sin? Like, is it a sin? Is the blood of the man that is killed on the hands of those jurors?
That's a really good question. And that kind
Which
of
I think,
it
yes, kind of.
yeah. Well, and it makes me think, you talk about like one of the objections I was going to dive into was people like to use that God pardoned David because, you know, he sent his best man to die so that Uriah, I think is how you pronounce his name. He sent Uriah to die so that he could have Bathsheba as his own. God pardoned him. You look at all these examples in the Old Testament, like you mentioned Cain killed Abel, David. I think this goes to, we're not God, and we do not have that ability to be the judge, jury, and execute. We don't have it. It's not our job, and Jesus told us, was to go out and make disciples of the world.
Now, something I don't think I touched on earlier, and with that is, I am still all for life in prison.
Yeah,
because life in prison is not death. It is not like that gives that person, from a Christian standpoint, that gives that person a whole lifetime to think about what they did and how to make up for it. And the best way to make up for any sin is redemption through Jesus.
Yeah, and that kind of goes into the restorative justice program that I watched. The father said that he'd be okay with the guy being released today, but the guy himself said that, especially since understanding more about his faith and Christianity, he doesn't think he should be released. He thinks he needs to finish his time.
Yep. Well, and it's interesting. I forget what verse it is, but Paul says that, you know, if he were to ever commit, I wish I would wrote it down because it was in the research I was doing, but Paul says that if he were to commit a crime worthy of death, he would accept his punishment.
Acts 25:11. I've got it in my notes.
There you go.
Yeah, Acts 25:11. If, however, I am guilty of doing anything deserving of death, I do not refuse to die. But if the charges brought against me by these Jews are not true, no one has the right to hand me over to them. I appeal to Caesar. Some have... Okay, that's it. I appeal to Caesar. That's the end of it.
Yeah. So if... I mean, he says that if his punishment's death, he accepts it. It is what it is. He did it.
And some people use that verse to say that capital punishment is okay through the government.
Through the government.
Yeah.
And that's like the 0.1% that is like 99.9% against it. I don't think we as Christians can support it or celebrate it, but I understand it I understand it. Me understanding is not me supporting it. I understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Let me say that. And I understand the use of it in terms of, from the flesh, eliminating vehemently evil people from the face of the earth. But that, again, removes... I mean, and this is why in America the separation of church and state is a thing. Because that... Well, we should talk about that one.
We should, because I was about to say, are you talking about the Jefferson reference? Or not Jefferson, but the Lincoln reference? It's Lincoln, right?
Yeah. I don't know.
Because you know that it was only written once in a letter to let a church know that the government wouldn't, like, mess with them. And then, of course, it's been twisted over time. I think it was Lincoln. We should do an episode on that. That'd be a fun one.
That will be a fun one. We'll do that after the next week.
Yeah, after next week's.
It's why it's important. Like, I think that's why that separation is there. But then every ruler is installed by God. So
it was Jefferson. It was Jefferson's letter to the Danbury Baptist. Sorry, I had to look it up because it was...
You're good.
It was driving me insane.
Here's the thing, chat. You cannot, as a Christian, separate any part of your life from God.
Mm-mm.
Doesn't matter if it's the government. Nope. Sorry. If you're a Christian, you are for a Christian government. Schools? Nope. You are for Christian schools. You can't separate Jesus from any part of your life without sinning.
And that's one of the things that I told you, that we have to stop being left versus right. We have to identify as Christians first.
Yes.
And one thing that I actually liked about the Mike Winger video is he's got a little thing on there. It says, learn to think biblically. This is Don't learn to think left and right. Learn to think biblically.
stop thinking that just because somebody has a D or an R beside their name that they're evil or that
Yeah.
they're Nazis or that they're fascist or that they're terrorists. That goes to both sides. Like,
Yeah.
as Christians, we need to be uniting at the foot of the cross under every policy issue and asking ourselves the simple question that's on a million bracelets: what would Jesus do?
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
I was just going to say another reason, and this is going to be another reason I think that as Christians we can't support the death penalty, is I found this to be kind of an interesting thing. Since 1973, over 190 people have been exonerated from death row. That's a wild number. That's a lot of people that could have been put to death. In our rush of justice. And of course, I don't think every case was a rush of justice, but that was one of the reasons they listed.
What if you get it wrong?
Yeah, because we're not God. We don't know.
No, we don't know everything. And what if the person on death row didn't do it? What if they were just the wrong person at the right place?
Yeah.
And
we end up shedding innocent blood in a pursuit of justice.
And then that blood's on your hands.
Yep.
And I think that in the justice system, there is the understanding that the right person may go to prison for life. That is an understanding that is, it's just the human nature of the justice system that's there. There's a couple stories out there, and not tons, but there's stories out there of people being exonerated, and then they get some form of their life back. If you kill them, and then, could you imagine the guilt, the weight on the jurors if somebody on death row is killed, the jury voted, let's say it states that the jurors have to decide the death penalty, and the jurors decide the death penalty, and then that person's put to death, and then DNA evidence is tested 10 years later for whatever reason, and then it turns out that they had it wrong, and then now this innocent man's been put to death for something he didn't do.
That's a heavy weight to bear.
You've essentially murdered that guy.
Yeah, you've
murdered that man.
Yeah, you have murdered someone. And we know that there is a certain number of innocent people. I don't think we'll ever know an actual number.
No,
because it's hard to prove stuff like that. Yeah, God knows, but that's kind of hard. That's something hard to prove. So, yeah, the more I think about this, in the video he was using, he was like, "These exceptions aren't the rule." Yeah, but God was the one making these exceptions.
So, and the exception. The ultimate exception is grace.
Yeah.
And I think this whole topic can be summed up in, if you look at it through the lens of love, what would love do?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
we know what Jesus would do.
Yeah. He proved it to
us.
Well,
ye without sin.
Ye without sin cast the first stone.
Mm-hmm. Everybody had to get up and leave.
Yep. So
I don't think I'm as torn on this as I thought I'd be by the end of it. I 100% think that we as Christians, as our old pastor said one time, we should be throwing ourselves in front of these people, doing everything in our power to share the love of Christ with them.
Yep. That's it.
That doesn't mean ram it down people's throats.
Nope.
Our job is to...
We should talk about that one episode, but we should talk about evangelism.
What is it? Dad used to always tell us, plant the seed, God will take care of the rest.
Yep. I have a friend, and I'm not going to mention his name, but I have a friend whose dad was murdered, and the guys who did it were not sentenced to death. And if I understand it right, and if he watches this, he can correct me, and then I can correct it later. But if I understand it right, he used to write letters to the DA's office about keeping them in jail, they're not eligible for parole, I don't think, but just making sure that they don't get out on parole.
Mm-hmm.
And he said the other day that he stopped writing those letters because he just doesn't care anymore. And he's like, I've moved on, and he's a Christian. Grace is sufficient. So I have one question to ask you before we wrap it up.
Oh no.
And we've already answered it.
Yeah.
Yes or no? Should Christians support the death penalty?
Christians should not.
Christians should not support the death penalty.
Yeah, we should show grace.
Yep. Guys, let us know what you think. If you are for it, let us know your reasoning. Don't just blast us. Let us know your reasoning. Why are you for it? If you are against it and you find yourself in the same boat that we are, let us know. If you have topics that you want us to cover, let us know. This has been a heavy topic. Like typically we end and we're like smiling and stuff, but I feel heavy right now.
I feel like I've just been to a battle, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we just waged spiritual war on the enemy.
Yeah.
And Jesus won. So
one thing I want to throw out before we end this, and this is a completely different subject. We know that Charlie Kirk had a heart for our youth. I just want to invite everyone who sees this to be praying for our youth. I've got a young gentleman in it's a Discord that I run for gamers. It's a Christian gaming Discord. Our youth are hurting, and the things that they are struggling with are things that their age should not be struggling with. Yes. Reading his story the other day, he's a young gentleman, and I don't want to go, I'm not going to share any names or anything. He's a young gentleman that struggles with a corn addiction, I guess is how we have to say this on social media. And it seems to be that he's of high school age. Parents, where are you?
Yep.
It broke my heart listening to his story, because he's too young to be having that type of struggle. And as someone who used to have a very similar struggle, I was a lot older when I had the struggle, but
it captures your mind.
Parents, pay attention to what your kids are looking at online, because there's nothing that can warp your mind like that stuff can. Oh. And it broke my heart reading his story, and I'm getting a little touched up thinking about it now, but our youth is just hurting, man.
So next week we're talking about, like, from a Christian standpoint, gender roles, and like the roles of like a father and a mother. And I'm trying to convince my wife to be on the show.
I'll try to get mine on, but I know Deanna's not going to do
it. Yeah, Kayla's probably not either.
Yeah, but I'll talk to her though.
It is our job as parents to protect our children. And if we're Christians, it is our duty from God to protect our children's minds and their hearts. And just because their friends do it, and that, oh, Dad, so-and-so has it, so I got to have it. Like, narrow is the way to righteousness and wide is the path to destruction.
Yeah.
Stop leading your children down the path of destruction because it's easy.
As a kid, I used to get so frustrated with our dad, because our dad, he was pretty big on protecting us. And as an adult, I just look back and think, thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Because it wasn't until I was older and dumb that I started making some decisions that kids are making in high school.
Yeah.
Because we had just a good dad.
Yep, we did.
Yeah.
Still do.
Still do.
Asleep right now.
Yeah, that's fair. He should be. It's late, but yeah.
Guys, if you need prayer, reach out to us. If you are somebody who is caught up in an addiction, whether it's lust or like some type of substance or anything, we want to pray with you. We want to talk to you. Me and Brandon are not perfect. We get things wrong. We have sinned a lot in our lives, but we serve an awesome Creator who redeemed us and wants to redeem you. You guys have a fantastic night. God bless, and we'll see you next week.
See y'all next week.